Welcome back. Let's move on to moving the fake data to the server side so we can serve it to the client. Back to server.js, we want to add a route here. So I don't need slash anymore. So I'm going to add a route. This is the goal. Add a route to serve all the written messages. Written message or entries, right? All the entries. So when it comes to server-side programming, you want to think in terms of resources. The resource we have in question right now is the entry. From the client side, you can see here on the left-hand side in the background, there is a list of entries. Each entry is a resource. So the typical standard way naming convention for the routes is to give the route name the name of the resource. I'm going to follow what's called REST convention. So when you want to get a list, when you get an index of all the resources, you do get for the verb, HTTP verb, and the route is usually going to be slash resource name. So app.get here, I'm going to change that to the name of the resource. I'm going to say entries. I'm going to use plural, but it's fine if you use singular. There are some people like to use singular. Some people like to use plural. I am going to choose plural. Now, when I hit get entries, it's going to do whatever I tell it to do. Let's try it out. Go back to the browser here. One thing I want to warn you is when I change the code here, I have to make sure to go back to the terminal and kill the server and restart it. For me, it's Control-C to send an interrupt signal and kill the server, and I can run the code node server.js again. And if I go to 3000, cannot get slash because that route is gone, so I have to say slash entries here now. And now it goes to that same message, everything is working fine. One thing I didn't mention before is if you're using Windows to do these commands, you might want to use the CMD or PowerShell, it's up to you. I'm a fan of using command line, so that's why I do all of these commands here. And it's simple and straightforward. So for Windows, use CMD or PowerShell. And it should work the same way as long as you installed NVM Windows or even through the Nodejs installer and all. It should work fine as long as everything is correctly set in your path variable. Okay. Anyway, continuing, go back to the text editor. Now I want to move all this fake data that we wrote here to the server side so we can serve that from the server, send it back to the client, and the client will dynamically populate the list of entries. So let me just copy and paste each one. I'm going to make an array here inside. I'm going to call it entries like so. I'll capitalize just to indicate it's a constant. Array is made with square brackets. Semicolon at the end of statement. I'm going to copy this first text. Now I'm going to make an array of objects. So I could make an array of strings. That's totally fine. Let me put the wrap here. But ultimately, I want this data to reflect what's going to look like in a database. And in the database, we have what's called an ID and many other fields for a single entity. So I'm going to refrain from making an array of strings. You could do that for the time being, but I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to make an object. To this object, I'm going to say text. And I'm going to paste that text under double quotes. You can use single quotes if you want. Now, to each entry, I'm going to give it an ID, a unique identifier. That's usually what appears in the database. And I'm going to give an integer value. I'm going to start counting from 1. With that, I'm also going to duplicate this. And I'm going to do ID 2 and then ID 3. And I'm going to copy the other text. And I'm going to replace for the second one with that text, the third one with the text from the third entry. So this is the representation of the data here on the left-hand side in the background in the browser. We have an array of objects. Each object has an ID to uniquely identify that object, and it has a text, which is what we see in each entry box. ID is a number, text is a string. String is a sequence of characters under quotes, right? Represented under quotes. Now with that, I can send this array of entries as the response for this route. When the client requests /entries, get /entries, we're going to reply with this list of entries, list of objects. So instead of the message object here, I'm going to say res.send, open parentheses, entries. With that, let's check the browser. Go to the tab where you have the localhost :3000/entries. Reload, of course, it's not going to work. Why? What did I tell you before? Every time you make a change to the server side, you have to kill the server and restart it again. So Control-C, node server.js again. Reload the page. Now we have the response here. If you look at the network tab and click entries, you can see the preview in a nice format. This is the browser that does this formatting to make it better for us to visualize. But the raw response is just one single line with everything without spaces. But you can see that we have the data here. Now let's hook up this to the client side. That's the next lesson. See you then.